Moving forward on the engine, we are going to install electronic ignition on the bike. The old setup was worn out, and we decided to replace it with the modern new electronic ignition. So this is what comes with the kit. Here's the magnet along with the flywheel. Here is the ignition module. It comes assembled, so this we will have to disassemble before we mount it on the engine. We will go through that later on. Relay switch, a new ignition coil, and a regulator, and also some mounting parts, some screws, and also a puller for the flywheel. Quite handy, then you have it. The reason for this is because when we are mounting the flywheel on the bike afterwards, we will have to test fit it, and then this will make it easy to take off. So all the screws are new, all the nuts are new. Seems quite straightforward, but of course it's not. This is the back plate that's on the engine. This I have vapor blasted. Looks very good. And yeah, we can start with the first thing, and that's that this plate will not actually fit. It says that you have to increase this hole. Let me see if that's correct. It says that you have to increase the wire exit on the back plate to 13 millimeters. Well, this is 14.8, so I guess we don't have to do that. And a quick check will be to put this in and see if it goes through. Yeah. So it's actually more than enough, or a little bit more than it should be actually. So we don't do any modifications on the back plates then. We might have to do some things here in order for this to stay a little bit better than this is quite loose. So I'll figure out something to make this fit better. Okay, for now then we put away the electronics. I put away the flywheel, and then we can start working on the electronic ignition module. The next obstacle now is that according to the instructions, it says that if, see here the cap of the on the axle here, if that's, it comes in two different sizes because of some reproduction parts, and the size is for the height of the nut is 15.4 and 11.6, and the 15.4 nut actually is too large, so this assembly won't fit. So we have to check, take off the nut, or the cap, call it whatever you want, here, and this measures, of course, 15. That means that this cap is too high in order to install the electronic ignition. I will show you later on, but the thing is that this will actually, it will rest on the top of the cap, and the flywheel will not enter the cone of the shaft properly, and it will actually not go in as far as it should, and then you'll have some wobble, and then of course the shaft is quite fast out of true, and you can have severe damage of the engine. So we have to figure out, should we buy a new one, find a 11.6 millimeter, or should we try to modify this in order to reduce the height of the nut and be able to use the kit as it is without buying a new nut. I'm not sure. Measuring this, it's possible to take off the top of the cap here, and then we are down to 11.6, I guess. Yeah, and 11.6 is exactly where we should be, and that means I can put this in a lathe. I can take down the tops here, but then we have to figure out how to actually be able to fix this later on, because there's nothing to grab onto. There's not much. I think we have about 1 millimeter of steel here, so I can't make marks. It's not enough steel for that. Could be that I can make some marks here and then use a big vise to fix it. That could work. Anyway, this cap is useless now, so if I try to modify it and break it, we have to buy another one anyway. So, but before we do that, I want to test fit it on the engine in order to understand and show you why this is a problem with this nut. Now I mounted the back plates and the hub here for the electronic ignition, and now we will try to see or figure out the problem with the nut here being too high. We know that this nut, according to the information that followed the ignition coil, it says that this nut will not work. This is going over here, and I guess the problem is that the nut is too high here, so the plate will actually hit the top of the nut. But we will assemble it and see, so we can be sure, and also to see what we can do. Okay. Yeah, so now we can see that the plate here is actually, I can wiggle it, so it is hitting the nut. So if I tighten this down now, it will not be straight, which means we have to take down the top of this nut. So two ways: either we have to buy aftermarket nut, or we have to take down the tops. Here I guess there is enough room here to or there is enough steel on the nut to actually put it in the lathe and take it down. A couple of millimeters should be okay. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the nut, take it down a couple of millimeters, and then we will see if that's enough. So now this is 13 millimeters, so we took it down 2 millimeters, which was the plan. And now I will install the cap again and then see whether we have enough free space to so we're not conflicting here. This is a dry mount. I will now just mount everything and see that it everything fits, and then we will take it off and use Loctite on the screws. Now we have enough free. Good. So then I think next now is I will take off the back plate again, mount it with Loctite, and I will put on the cylinder and unsettle the piston so we can find the top dead center before we mount the rest of the ignition. But yeah, quite pleased with this. We didn't have to buy a new cap. We used the old one with a little bit of modification, and that's better than buying a new.
Her kan jeg på.
Sånn.
Pappa har ikke faen.
Ja, skjerpa.
Dette her. Jeg får skru og så kan jeg på en måte gjøre opp gjesten så. Den da. Og den.
Ja, måler du hengene på. Den står her. Og så finner du ut hvordan den henger der. Det var ta først. Ja, så måler du hengene. Er du sikker? Få se. Sett den på hengene. En 1,5? Ja.
Ja, ødelagt. Så fiksa.
Fiksa?
Pappa, hvis jeg får tak i en team som her, da går det å lage en krabbe. At dette her er en team, at dette er en krabbeklo.
Sånn er det. Det finns lådor som är så stora. Now we will check the spacer and find out which way it should be placed here. It's actually possible to do it 3 ways: this way, and this way. And there's only one correct way. And the idea is that the wire here will have to go out in the hole here, so you have to align it in order for the holes to fit here, and also the plate of the stator here. So we will check with this position and the wire in here. No, then it's no holes here to fit the stator plate because the holes are here. So we will have to turn it around like that. Now these holes should align, and it does. And now it corresponds with the hole here, so now we will be able to get through the wire. That means we will fix the spacer here now in this position before we move on. It's vibrating out. And now we will have to disassemble this because you're not able to, or maybe you are, no, I think we are, well, I will check. Wait. You have to access the fastening screws. So this one is okay, and actually, as you can see, this one is not okay. So here we will have issues is interfering with the stator. So I guess we will take off this, mount it, and then we can also check the free play here. So let's do that. So there's a mark here. Take notes to that. That means it should be about this. There. Now I'll find the screws and we will fix this before we do anything more, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so here we have three 4 millimeters clearance, so that's okay. But I'm not happy with doing this way because it will get really trouble to get this through afterwards. I think go back, we reassemble it in here, and I will figure out a way to fasten it. Now the stator are mounted, and now we are going to mount the rotor or the flywheel. And it's actually the position of the flywheel that is determining the ignition on this. So it's not possible to adjust the ignition here. You're actually adjusting the ignition by how you're putting on the flywheel and where it sits. So there are markings here. Here we have a marking, and we have a corresponding marking on the engine on the plate here, a red one. The piston should be 4.5 millimeter before top dead center when you're positioning the flywheel, and that's according to the book. But because we are running this engine on modern petrol, we can set the ignition to 3.5 millimeters before top dead center. That should be a more optimal ignition timing for this engine with modern fuel. So now we have to measure. So we get 3.5 millimeter before top dead center. So we will have to mount a clock on the engine and try to wiggle it around and then position the flywheel. Now we will set the timing of the engine, and on this DKW the timing is actually set by positioning the flywheel in the correct position corresponding to top dead center. The spec of the engine is 4.5 millimeters before TDC. That's where the ignition should be, but since this engine is running on modern petrol, it is recommended to set the timing on 3.5 millimeters TDC before TDC. And the way it's done, or the way I want to do it now, I do the timing before I put on the head, because it's easier for me just to measure directly on the piston. So I've placed here a micrometer positioning on the head, and then we can measure here, and I can turn with the flywheel, and you can see here there's a mark which should correspond to the same mark on the here is the mark on the flywheel. So when the engine is 3.5 millimeters before top dead center, this line should correspond to this line, which means we actually have to wiggle this around, figure out where we have the correct position of the piston, then mount the flywheel, tighten it, and check whether it has moved or not. And if some of you might have noticed, I've not put in the Woodruff key on the shaft. It's a very good reason for that, because there is no Woodruff key. There's no room for any Woodruff key in the flywheel, so it's not made that way. And then you might think that oh, this is the wrong flywheel, it doesn't have a Woodruff key. The shaft actually has a Woodruff key, but the thing is, the cone on the shaft is what's fixing the flywheel, not the Woodruff key. We are actually with this flywheel, we are actually timing the engine with the flywheel. So if there would have been a Woodruff key here, actually it would have been huge problems. So we have to mount it. Of course, here we have checked that there's clearance and everything, so this should be okay. And after we have tightened it, we have to check again, because this can move, and I suspect we have to wiggle around there. Now I'm just finding the top dead center. So there, approximately. That's good. No, perfect, top dead center. And I will take the piston 3.5 millimeters down. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 0.5. So here is the correct piston for firing before top dead center. And now we will have to position the flywheel according to the red line. And now it's wrong because I just put it on, so I will actually now just take it off, remount it and recheck. If it's okay, we will tighten the nut. Can take the engine up to top dead center there. Okay, then I go back 1 millimeter, 2, 3.5 there, and then we check the lines, and it's a little bit off, so we need to take it some degrees back. Tighten the nut and then we recheck. Of course it can, or I suspect it will move. Now the flywheel is on, positioned correctly, 3.5 millimeters before top dead center. Now I will put on the head. Here we have the new bolts, which are nickel plated by myself. So this was actually the old bolts of the engine, which I have refurbished. Looks really nice. So I'm hoping that this will not be corroded too quickly. Nice color, a little bit yellow shine in it. Looks like old nickel plating. So before we put it on, I will have some lubrication in the cylinder, because we don't know for how long this engine will be standing not running. Of course, I'm hoping it's will be this year, but you never know. So just have some lubrication in here. The head, this I glass blasted and vapor blasted. Looks really nice. A new head gasket. This one has a copper lining, which means we will not use any gasket sealant on this. The sealant here is the copper, so let's try it out. And we have the bolts. We will have some oil on the bolts, and the reason for that is this top head bolts. In order to have the correct momentum on it, it's better to lubricate the bolt rather than having Loctite on them actually. Yeah, so let's mount the head. This looks really nice. Very good. Now we're starting to get in the end of this engine rebuild. The head is on. We are waiting for the decompression valve, and we have the spark plug, and we will mount the carburetor. And we have an issue here now. In here there should be some gas flow, to call it, yeah, to direct the exhaust gas. It looks like this. The problem, they're going in like that. The problem here now is that this is corroded and broken, difficult to get a hand of. So the next episode will be that I will actually make new ones, or try to make new ones before we, instead of buying old ones, I will try to make new ones, and yeah, mount the carburetor, and then we are finished with this engine, and it's ready to be mounted in the bike. I'm really happy about how this turned out. The aluminium looks very good. The nickel plated bolts looks good to the aluminium. The brass polished, extremely nice.